The sun filtered through the park's trees, casting a golden hue. It was a peaceful afternoon, filled with the sounds of children's laughter and birdsong. Emma Riley, her camera slung over her shoulder, surveyed the scene with anticipation. A few yards away, the Smith family posed for their photos. David and Sarah had their arms around their sons, Michael and Liam. Charlie, the family's loyal golden retriever, sat patiently at their feet, as if he knew he was a part of the family portrait. "Looking great, Smith family," Emma called out cheerfully. "Let's get a few more. Mom and Dad, lean in just a little more. Kids, you're perfect." Emma snapped a series of photos, capturing the warmth and intimacy of the family. Liam and Michael were being their usual playful selves, and their parents were gently scolding them while smiling. As Emma began to quickly review the photos on the camera screen, she reflected on how much she loved the small preview of the shoot during the live sessions. But this time, as she scrolled through the pictures, she suddenly caught her breath. Something in one of the frames instinctively grabbed her attention. "No way," she murmured to herself. Sarah noticed the change in her demeanor and asked, concern etched in her voice, "Is everything all right, Emma? Is something wrong?" Emma quickly looked up, forcing a smile. "Oh, yes. Just making sure the lighting is right. Just a sec." But Emma wasn't really focused on the lighting. Her mind was solely on that peculiar detail in the photo. Her heart started pounding, and her hands began to tremble slightly. She zoomed in closer on the detail, capturing another photo, this time focusing directly on that one spot. As the image appeared on the screen, Emma's mind raced with questions. Was there a smudge on her lens? Or was it perhaps a camera error? Her hand instinctively reached for a cleaning cloth, but the cloth did not fix the issue. The detail was still there, visible in all the photos. "Impossible?" she whispered. As she hit the zoom button again, the palms of her hands began to sweat. The anomaly became even more pronounced. It didn't make any sense. David's voice pulled her back into the present. "Emma, is everything okay? Can we take a few more?" Emma straightened her shoulders, trying to remain calm and reposition the family. Her movements felt mechanical. Her mind was consumed by the image in the photo. She snapped a few more photos, and her hands began to shake once more. David and Sarah noticed a sudden change in Emma's mood. David walked over to her and asked, "Is everything all right?" Emma forced another fake smile as her chest tightened. As she looked at the latest photo on her camera, she was pulled back in time, 3 years into the past. Emma had been pregnant, eagerly anticipating the day she would hold her firstborn child. When the moment finally came, when she held her baby in her arms, she had never felt such happiness. She would never forget the way his tiny fingers curled around her fingers, or the sound of his small cry. But that happiness had been abruptly taken away. The nurses had taken her baby for routine checkups, and Emma had drifted into a light sleep. When she woke up, the hospital was in chaos. Doctors and nurses were huddled together, avoiding her gaze, whispering among themselves. When the police arrived, Emma knew that something was terribly wrong. A nurse approached her, her voice trembling, and confessed, Your baby is missing." Emma was devastated. Over time, despite the fact that her baby had been stolen and never found, the pain had never really gone away. Even with her own heart broken, Emma immersed herself in her work, capturing the happy moments of other families. Whenever she saw a child, she couldn't help but think about how her own son would have looked at that age. She could never forget that her baby had a distinct birthmark on his arm. This birthmark was engraved in her memory. Hoping for a miracle, she always looked for this mark whenever she visited orphanages. But after 3 years, hope had begun to dwindle. Even so, a mother's instinct would never let her completely give up. Emma quickly scrolled through the photos on her camera, the tension growing in her chest. She was desperately trying to remain professional, but her mind kept returning to the same question. Could it really be him? Or was she just grasping at straws, trying to make a connection where there wasn't one. Emma decided that she couldn't leave without getting answers. She hung her camera around her neck and walked over to the Smith family. Her voice was slightly trembling, but her smile was sincere as she asked, "Excuse me, this might sound a little strange, but how old is your youngest son, Mrs. Smith?" Sarah tilted her head, looking interested, and smiled. "He's 3. Emma's heart beat faster. This couldn't be a coincidence. She cautiously continued, trying to hide her increasing distress. "Oh, how charming. He's such a handsome boy." Sarah smiled. "Thank you. He's perfect. The best choice we ever made." Emma, trying to understand, asked, "What do you mean by best choice?" Sarah responded, "We adopted him when he was a year old. He was so adorable. We couldn't leave him." Emma clenched her hands together, trying to stop them from shaking. "That's amazing," she mumbled, her voice trembling slightly. "Which orphanage?" Sarah, a little taken aback, politely answered, "Just a few hours outside the city. St. Anne's Children's Home. They were wonderful to us." Emma knew St. Anne's well. She had visited several times during her desperate search, but had never found any clues that would have led her to her son. Hesitantly, Emma continued, "I hope I'm not overstepping, but your younger son, the birthmark on his arm." Emma took a deep breath, her body trembling. She could no longer control her emotions. Her voice shook as she confessed, I lost my son 3 years ago, shortly after his birth. He was stolen from the hospital. All I remember is the birthmark, which is identical to the one on your son's arm." The Smiths' faces changed from puzzlement to complete surprise. David, stuttering, asked, "Are you saying?" Emma nodded her head, tears welling up in her eyes. "I believe he could be my son." The days that followed were filled with anticipation and research. Emma spent restless nights replaying the photo shoot, her mind going in circles as she waited for the DNA test results. What if she was wrong? Was this just a cruel coincidence? But she was about to get the shock of her life. The DNA results came back, and they confirmed what she had secretly hoped for. Liam was her son. Despite the initial shock, the Smiths were incredibly compassionate and understanding. Sarah, with sadness in her voice, said, "We had no idea. We have loved him as if he were our own. But if you are his mother..." Emma wiped away her tears and shook her head. "You've shown him so much love and care. I am eternally grateful for that. I don't want to separate you from him. I just want to be involved in his life." In a touching reunion organized by the Smiths, Emma finally held her son again. Liam looked up at her with curiosity, and she traced a birthmark on his tiny hand. She was overwhelmed with emotion. Sarah gently spoke, "You're his mother, and he belongs with you. But if you don't mind, we'd love to be a part of his life as well." Emma smiled through her tears and looked at the Smiths. "I'd be honored. He's lucky to have both of you." What began as a routine photo shoot had ended with a miracle. Emma's search was over, but her journey with her son and the Smiths was just beginning. What would you do if you discovered a life-changing truth during a seemingly ordinary moment? Let us know how you would balance your emotions while doing what's best for the child.